some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
So basically, he's covering all the tribulation from the beginning of tribulation even unto the end. From the time that the Lord sent his army to attack the earth all the way till judgment day. He says a lot in those two verses. Jump down to verse 5. Go ahead.
Then I, Daniel, looked, and beheld, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on the other side of the bank of the river.
Uh-huh.
And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders?
And go ahead. How long is it going to be? Verse 7.
And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swore by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half, and when he shall be have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished.
All right, so the angels, these are two angels, and he says, the Lord liveth, he shall swear. How long is the time of these wonders? How long is the time of the time we just read in chapter 2? I mean, in verse 2. How long shall the tribulation last? He said a time, then he said a times plural, then he said a half, which is a half a time. So he's telling us how long this time is going to last. For 3.5 years, and we're going to show that just to sum it up, it's 3.5 years. A time is 1 year, times is 2 years, and a half a time is a half a year. So 3.5 years is the time of all these wonders are going to take place. Jump down to verse 9 and go ahead.
And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
Mm-hmm.
Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand.
So he's telling us how wicked this time is going to be. Couture, don't do that. That's too loud. He's telling how long this time is going to be, and how it's gonna. He said, many shall be purified, many gonna be made white and tried. But what's the rest of the world gonna be like? The rest of the world gonna be wicked. They're gonna do wickedly, and the wicked shall understand none of these things. To the wicked, it's gonna be just time. It's just everyday thing, isn't it, Isaiah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they just think this is how life is. They're gonna think the world is just they're not gonna call it wicked. That's what lack of understanding they have. They're not even gonna call it wicked. They're gonna call wicked good and good evil. That's why the Bible says, woe until they call evil good and good evil. You know, the norm or the status of the world is gonna be so wicked that nobody's gonna know what good is. And can we see, Isaiah, that this is going down that path?
Oh, absolutely. It started already.
Yeah. So he said, many shall be made purified and made white in verse 10 and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Verse 11.
And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that make desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
All right. So now we get a time frame, right? It said from the time the daily sacrifices are taken away. Now, what daily sacrifices is he speaking of? It's important for us to pay attention to the world as a whole and not just the United States. We know that the people over in the land of Israel are trying to build a third temple. And we know that they're going to start sacrificing. I mean, the daily sacrifices. They already do sacrifices like on the Passover and during the feast days. But it's going to be a daily sacrifices, one in the morning and one in the evening. Now, we know the abomination desolation is going to cause those sacrifices to cease. He's going to end those sacrifices. And when he ends those sacrifices, it's going to be 1,290 days until Christ returns. That's 1,290 days till Christ returns. All right? Now, when you see this, for when we're hopefully in a place that's safe and we see this is going on, we can kind of look at things. It's okay. We see the daily sacrifices have ended. Now we got 1,290 days until that seventh trumpet is blown. So we can use it as a countdown. But we also know that this is the time of tribulation plus 30 days. All right? So let's go a little further. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. We're going to start at verse 19. So from the time of the daily sacrifice, everybody understand what the daily sacrifices is? Everybody good? Everybody paying attention? You know what the daily sacrifices are? The daily sacrifices. Yeah, I thought. Once again, the daily sacrifices are they're going to build a third temple in Jerusalem, and they're going to do sacrifices, sacrifice animals twice a day. That's the daily sacrifices. And somebody's going to cause them to stop doing that. And when they cause them to stop doing that, it's 1,290 days until tribulation and everything is over and Jesus make a second coming. All right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to start at verse 19. When you get there, bro, go ahead.
Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in the pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. All right, so now what does this have to do with tribulation? There was 4 beasts that was shown to Daniel, just like there was a statue, a head of gold, arms of silver, and was legs in brass and feet of mire and clay. All those were examples of the Gentile kingdom. From the time of Nebuchadnezzar all the way down to the time of the Roman Empire. So you had the Roman Empire, you had the Medes and the Persians, then you had Greece, and then Rome took out Greece, and Rome been ruling the world ever since then. Maybe not through military might, but they've been ruling the world through religion. Now, he also had 4 beasts that he talked about, which was represented the same thing. The first beast was talking about Nebuchadnezzar or Babylonian Empire was a lion. The next beast was a bear with ribs in his mouth. Then the beast after that was either the goats with 4 horns or it was a leopard with 4 heads. But the last beast was a combination of the other 3. And this was a exceedingly dreadful beast. There wasn't even an animal. This beast was so bad, there wasn't even an animal to describe it. And that's talking about the Roman Empire. So this 4th beast we're talking about right now is a revival of the Roman Empire. And we know that king who's ruling is ruling the Roman Empire. Verse 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. All right, so these kings, these horns are talking about kings. But we're talking about one particular horn, one particular king that was different from the rest of the other horns, that was different from the rest of the other kings. How was this horn different? Verse 21. And I beheld the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. All right, so this particular horn was killing the saints. They were killing the worshipers of God. That's why this horn was kind of different. This horn was the only horn who really tried to rule through religious means. And because they're ruling through religious means, they're killing the true saints of God. And how long this is going to happen? Until when? Verse 22. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. All right, so once everything is said and done, when the Ancient Days came, he ended that rule. And then he's going to pass it over to the saints. He's going to pass it over to his servants. And that's why we pray that kingdom come, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's why in Psalms 37, he says the meek shall inherit the earth. Because Jesus is going to hand over the earth unto his people. Verse 23. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, break it in pieces. Mm-hmm. And the 10 horns of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times, laws. They shall be given into his hand until a times, and the dividing of time.
Now we read in Daniel chapter 12 when the angel said, "How long shall these wonders be?" And it shall be for a time, times plural, and a half a time. Mm-hmm. And now we hear in Daniel chapter 7, the Lord, this is Gabriel actually talking to Daniel, and it says, "How long shall these things be?" He said, "This king shall change laws," which we know he has changed laws. That's why Sunday, Isaiah became the Sabbath, right?
Absolutely.
That's why in the 4th century, all the pagan traditions were absorbed into Christianity because this king decided he wanted to change laws. All right? And how long shall he be given power unto him? A time, times plural, and divided in time, which is also 3.5 years, or 1,260 days. Verse 26.
But the judgment shall sit, and they shall be taken away his dominion to consume and to destroy it until the end.
And what shall happen to the kingdom after that? Go ahead.
And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him.
Now, where is his kingdom located, Brother Isaiah? Under where?
Under the whole heaven.
So that means we're not going up to heaven, does it?
No.
It's coming down to us, and it's going to be given unto us. So the Lord is outlining all these things, and all these things are taking place from tribulation all the way down to after tribulation. Let's go to Thessalonians chapter 2. Let's read a little bit more about this particular king. Thessalonians chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 1. Thessalonians chapter 2. And once again, we're still talking about the abomination and desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. And it's important even in the New Testament because Paul is talking about it even here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind or in trouble, neither by spirit nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Yeah, I think we're at the falling away, don't you think, Isaiah?
Oh, absolutely.
So this time should not come except there come the falling away first. We fell so far away. And it said that son of perdition shall be revealed. Now, what's the characteristics of this son of perdition? Verse 4.
Who opposeth and exalt himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
So that's the characteristics that we should look for. He said he's going to sit in the temple of God. Didn't we read in Daniel that he shall call the daily sacrifice at the end?
Yes.
And then once he calls the daily sacrifice at the end, he's going to move into those. And what happens when the daily sacrifice ended? That's our start count. That is 1,290 days until Christ returns, or 1,290 days until the end of tribulation. So once he move into this temple they're going to build in Jerusalem, actually move in, it's 1,260 days, or times plural, or a half a time, or 3.5 years, or times, or dividing the times. All that adds up to 3.5 years when you see this abomination and desolation move into the holy place. So sometimes you don't get distracted by all the chaos going around among you. Look at the entire world. Look and see what's going on in Jerusalem. Google templemountfaithful.org. They tell you everything they are doing to prepare for this temple. They're telling you how they're training Levites as we speak, how they're building schools. They're telling you how they have all the apparel that the Levites need to wear to do these sacrifices. They tell you when they find a red heifer to do the sacrifices. They tell you about the school that these Levites are going to. They even tell you the hand sign that the Levites have, which is weird, but It's all this stuff is on the internet and it's going on right now, but we're not paying attention to that because we're so distracted. So all this stuff is happening right be under our noses, and all we gotta do is pay attention. So that's why Jesus said, be careful, because I will sneak upon you as a thief in the night. But he has all this stuff written down so we'll be aware of it, right? Now, all this stuff is happening. We don't have to read all verse 12, but here's a scary thing that we gotta be aware of. Jump down to verse 9.
Even him who cometh is after the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness and of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved.
So he's talking about all the deceitfulness. Once again, he's talking about being deceived. Being deceived. Verse 10.
You mean verse 11?
I'm sorry, verse 11. Yeah, go ahead.
And for this cause God shall send them strong delusions, that they should believe a lie.
Now, that's going to be the hardest thing for us as Christians right now, is to spread this truth, because God's going to send them a strong delusion. Now, here's the thing. Last night we were talking about global warming and the discussion on Instagram, and Kim posted and said that asking you shall receive is a two-edged sword. If people really want to believe the deceitfulness and lies, God's going to allow them to do it. Is God going to send them a strong delusion that they're going to believe a lie? And what's the outcome of that? Destruction. Like verse 9, who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power? And people say, well, you just preaching fire and brimstone. I'm not doing it. We're reading a book, and it's a warning. Believe what you want to believe. But understand this, that God had it written down, so we are without excuse. So he said in verse 11, for also we pray always for you, that our God would count you worthy this calling. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong chapter. That's where, at verse 11, for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. Verse 12.
That they might be damned who believeth not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
So be careful what you ask for, because God can send you a strong delusion. Because you ask for that, God's going to give you what you want. But understand this, you're going to have to suffer the consequences of your actions. God is a man of free will. He gives you choice. He wants you to choose. If you want to believe a lie, he will send you a strong delusion. But if you want to believe the truth, he will show you the truth is so clear that you can't, and you have to acknowledge that it is the truth. It's all what's in your heart. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 24. We're going to start at verse 16. So we talked about the abomination and desolation, some of the characteristics. He is a king, right? He shall have no desire of women. He shall rule and overthrow the earth during the worst time the man has ever lived. For times and a half a time, or times plural, and divided in times, or 1,290 days from the time of the end of daily sacrifices, when he moved into the holy place. And the holy place is talking about Jerusalem. Now, let's go back to verse 16. Let's see what's going to happen after that. So once he moved into the temple, what's next, right? What happens after that? Let's see. Verse 16.
Then let them which be in the Judea flee into the mountains.
All right, so if you are in Judea when this take place, not only in Judea across the world, but definitely if you're in Jerusalem or Judea or in that land when this take place, what are we supposed to do? Go ahead.
Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with children, and to them that give suck in those days.
Why? Go ahead.
But pray ye that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day.
Okay.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be.
If we think stuff is bad now with people, it's going to get worse. The stuff that we're seeing in the news and the stuff we're seeing in society, it's not even tribulation yet, is it? We're in pre-tribulation. But when we see the abomination, desolation stand in a holy place, we know tribulation is right around the corner. And when tribulation does come, it's expedient that we find a place that's safe. We need to find a place that's safe where we don't have to go through the things that a lot of the world have to go through. Yes, Korean. Expedient? Hurry up. Quickly. So we have to hurry up and get to a place that's safe. Why? For tribulation. And it's going to be the worst time that man has ever seen, like Daniel told us. Verse 22.
And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Now this let us know another time frame. Right now, man has the capability of destroying our flesh, don't they? I mean, we seen what happened in World War II when the United States dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, right? That was devastating. Now they have bombs to make Hiroshima look like a firecracker. And more than one country has them. That's why the United States and other nations take it upon themselves to tell other countries, don't make more nukes. But if you think about it, you got nukes. So why would you tell somebody else that they can't have them? I mean, it's just common sense. If everybody else got you guns and they all point their guns at each other and you don't have one, what you think you going to do? You don't get you a gun. So it's kind of understandable. I mean, granted, it's good that they are keeping a lid on it, but eventually everybody's going to have a way to defend themselves. Even the Bible says, let the weak say I am strong, don't they? Beat your swords into plowshares. Beat your plowshares into swords. Your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. Right now, man has the capability to destroy all flesh right now. They never had that in history of man. So let's just know that this is now. Because people say, well, man, I've always been in war with each other. You can't destroy all flesh with no sword, no shield. You can destroy the flesh that's around you, but not all flesh. Right now, man don't even have to go to war. They got drones that can drop all the bombs for them. This is the technology that man have right now. And right now, we're at the point where man can destroy all flesh. But thank God that God has to shorten these days. Because if he don't shorten tribulation, man literally would destroy all flesh. Go ahead, verse 23.
And then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not.
Deception, but go ahead.
For there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch as if there were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
So the signs that we're about to see shall be so strong that even people who know better might consider that this might be the real thing. That's scary. Remember when God said he shall send a strong delusion? That's what he's talking about. That you're going to see some miracles. You're going to see some things happen that it has to be the power of God doing these things. And then you're going to have people around you who are fellow quote-unquote Christians who was like, look, the Heavenly Father made an image speak. It was crying the other day, but now it's actually speaking. It was crying blood, but now it's speaking with a real voice. Can you imagine how many people will fall for that strong delusion? But God is telling us this. And why is it important that he told us, verse 25?
Behold, I have told you before.
He said, I'm telling you this stuff happened before it happens, so you'll be aware. So now, after tribulation, once tribulation starts, the tribulation hasn't started quite yet, but during that gap, from when we see the abomination desolation stand in the holy place, we have 30 days to get to a place that's safe. And he's going to talk about that here in Revelation chapter 12. You have a 30-day window before tribulation actually jump off. All right? So we have Revelation chapter 12. We're going to start at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head was a crown of 12 stars.
So what nation is this talking about? Everybody know?
Israel.
Talking about the nation of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. You can go back to the dream that Joseph had. Joseph had a dream where his father was the sun and his mother Rachel was the moon, and the 11 stars, 12 stars, really was the children of Israel. So that's the woman that the Lord is talking about, the children of Israel, his bride. Verse 2.
And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and beheld a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head.
That's the beast that we read about in Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Talking about the Roman Empire. Verse 4.
And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
All right. So we talk about the Roman Empire. We know that Satan is the being behind the Roman Empire. That's why it said his tail, talking about Satan himself, drew 3rd part of the angels in heaven, talking about the stars of heaven, talking about the angels, and ready to devour the child as soon as it was born. Remember when the wise men didn't go back to King Herod? What did King Herod do after that, Isaiah?
He destroyed all the children. Was it 2 on down?
2 on down, exactly. That's why I say it was pain for him to be delivered. Because when Jesus was born, the king was already looking to take his life. And then once he was about 2 years old, when the wise men actually finally got there and they left, Herod realized that he's been deceived. And he killed all the children 2-year-olds and under that was born in Jerusalem that he knew of. That's why Jesus fled to Egypt. Verse 5.
And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne.
That's when Jesus was crucified, was resurrected on the 3rd day, and sit at the right hand of God the Father. Now he's going to take us to our day, verse 6, or past our day. Go ahead.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days.
All right. Anybody can do some math? How many days is 3 score?
60.
60. A score. You know how long a score is? A score is 20. You knew that? Yep, that's how long a score is. So when you hear the speech that Lincoln gave when he say 4 score and 7 years ago, something like that? How long is 4 score? 80, exactly. So now here, Couture and Corinne, when it says 1,203 score days, you know how many that is? 1,200 and how many score days? What's the score? 3, what's 3 score? 3 score is 80? No, 60. There you go, 60. So 1,260 days is how long that the woman's going to be taken care of in its place that's safe. Now remember we read in Matthew chapter 24 when you shall see the abomination and desolation moving to the holy place. It says those that be in Judea are supposed to do what? Flee, right? Run. How long they're going to be reserved or kept safe? For 1,260 days. That's when the woman fled away from the face of the dragon. Go ahead.
And
Verse 6.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, and that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven.
All right, you can jump down to verse 13 and go ahead.
Okay. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child.
Now, remember when the Lord told Eve that told Satan and Eve that he should be enmity against thee? This is talking about the church and Satan. Satan always fought the church. He's always fought them. Even when in the beginning, all the way till when Jesus was there, even to now, Satan is always after the church. Verse 14.
And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half from the face of the serpent.
So we know this is the same time because Daniel then told us this times and a half a time. How many, like 3 times?
Yeah, at least twice.
Right. So that's 2 times. Now in Revelation, we talking about a time, times plural and a half a time. We didn't heard 1,290 days. Now we hear 1,260 days is a 30-day gap. All that adds up to about how long? 3.5 years. That's the length of tribulation. That's the length of the worst time that man has ever seen, nor shall be. And the Lord is saying you need to go to a place that's safe for 3.5 years. Verse 15.
And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood.
But what?
And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have testimony of Jesus Christ.
So who's Satan making war with?
The saints.
The saints. And how you know you're a saint? If you keep the commandments of God and have the faith and testimony of Jesus Christ. That's who Satan is after. So the Lord said the woman's going to be nourished in the wilderness or a place that's safe for how long? 1,260 days, or a time, times plural, or in dividing the times, ultimately, which is 300 years. Not 300 years, 3.5 years. And we know 3.5 years divided by 1,260 is 42 months. All right. So now, this is the time when people usually say, well, I don't have to worry about this because I'm going to be raptured off, right? I don't have to worry about tribulation because tribulation comes, I'm going to be raptured off, and all the saints going to be in heaven, and all this chaos going to be down here. That's when you go to your grandmama's house and you see that picture of Jesus in the air, and under him planes and stuff crashing and all that type of stuff. That's not going to happen. Matter of fact, God don't even have to do that. Let's go to Psalms 23. Let's show you how strong our God is. Psalms 23, we can start at verse 4. Psalm 23, verse 4. When you get there, go ahead.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
How often do we hear this? We hear this songs a lot, don't we? But do we really believe what it says? How do you believe in a rapture, but then you read Psalm 23 that says, yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I shall be taken care of. How strong is God? Verse 5.
Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So basically,
if God can prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies, why does he have to rapture you off? You can stand in the middle of 8094 during the busiest time of the year with a table and nobody will hit you if God protects you, right? So he doesn't have to rapture us off. Matter of fact, he said, I'm going to put you in a place that's safe in the wilderness for 3.5 years where you will be nourished, where you'll be taken care of from the face of the spoiler and the face of the Satan, the devil, the enemy. And you will be taken care of. Just to show you that, let's go to Isaiah chapter 16. Isaiah chapter 16, we're going to read one verse, verse 4. Now remember, the abomination of desolation is sitting in an unholy place, right? That's talking about Jerusalem. They're talking about the land of Israel. That's ground zero, where everything is jumping off at. Now, look what the Lord told the children of Israel, told Moab, verse 4. Go ahead.
Let my outcast dwell with thee, Moab. Be thou a covert to them from the face of the spoiler. For the extortioner is at the end, the spoiler ceases, the oppressors are consumed out of the land.
All right, so he said, Moab, keep an eye on Mount Outcast. If you look at the map of Jerusalem or the map of Israel, Moab, Edom, and Ammon are right under that country. And according to this, he said, Moab, let my outcast dwell with thee. Right there in that spot, right there. Matter of fact, well, we'll verify this location later in the lesson. But in verse 1 says, the Lamb's going to leave Jerusalem, and then he's going to go to the wilderness, which is right there. So God don't have to rapture us off to protect us. God can put his hedges around you right then and there. Even if you read the book of Kings, when Elisha and Gehazi was scared because they were surrounded by the Assyrians. And Elisha looked at them and was like, well, there's more of us than there is of them. Why are you scared? Because he didn't see the hedges of the angels that were surrounding Elisha. Sometimes you just got to have faith that you're going to be taken care of in bad places. That God's going to have his hedges around you. You know, even no matter what we go through life, we go through some hard things in life. Sometimes we get in hard situations when it comes to how we live in or how our children are, or even our workplaces. We gotta understand if God has his hedges around us, no matter what anybody do to us, it's not gonna affect us because God is gonna take care of us. So God might put us in a situation and see how strong our faith really is to say, you know what, Lord, I'm just gonna put this all on you because I know your hedges are around me. It's gonna come out good. So whatever person you put in front of me or for people around me, it's going to be good because your hedges are around me. You can make cause a table in the presence of my enemies. You can do that, and I will excel. Because that's what God's going to do. So you don't have to rapture them out. Let's go to Revelation chapter 13. Now, we're getting into tribulation now. We start off talking about pre-tribulation. Then we start talking about the abomination desolation. Then once he moves into the holy place, we talk about that 30-day gap where we got to run to a place that's safe. Now we're going to get into tribulation. And remember at the end of Revelation 12 and verse 17, it says Satan went to make war with the remnant of the seed of the woman, meaning that not all the saints made it to a place that's safe. Some stayed behind to go through tribulation because God had a job for them. Because if you don't make it to a place that's safe and you are in the middle of tribulation, that means you were chosen by God to spread his word that you have a job to do. So once you get out the corner crying all day, go ahead, get up, dust yourself off, and go do what God wants you to do. That's to spread his word because there's still some people out there who need to hear the truth. So Revelation chapter 13, we're going to start at verse 1. We're not going to read 1 through 18. We'll jump around. But go ahead and start reading at verse 1.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw the beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon the heads of the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth was the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. All
right, so we're talking about the revival of the Roman Empire. That's what we was kind of touched on in the book of Daniel. But jump down to verse 6 and go ahead. I'm sorry, verse 5. Go ahead.
And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and the power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
All right, now we see another number there, 42 months. God has given us a lot of numbers in this lesson. It's the same number over and over and over and over again, isn't it?
Yes.
It started off as time, times, and a half a time. Then he said times, and a dividing of times. Then he said 1,290 days. Then he said 1,260 days. Now he's saying how many months, Isaiah?
42 months.
42 months. All of this at the same time. And it's 3.5 years. So he's talking about tribulation. All right? And what's going on during that tribulation? Jump down to verse, let's go ahead and keep going. Verse 6.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and to his tabernacle, and to them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And the power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear.
All right, so this is important for us to understand that during tribulation, this king that we read about, or the abomination desolation, is going to have power over all the nations. All the nations is going to serve him. And if you look at this characteristics, let's say the Pope want to come to Chicago. He call and say, I'm going to come to Chicago next week. Won't they shut the city down? They were literally shut the city down. Let's say he want to go to, I don't know, Barcelona. They will shut the whole country down. It would be the biggest event, and they will do everything in their power to say, if you want to be there tomorrow, it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter where he is. And when one dies, the entire world come and pay homage. It don't matter if you a Muslim or a Christian. Everybody is going to pay homage. Mm-hmm. Yes. You're going to pay respects. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you remember when the Pope visited New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and they shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming and going. How they shut New York City down. That was amazing.
Right. So if we can see, just look through history how stuff happens, you can see how this book comes alive.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's go see what happened during tribulation. Jump down to verse 15 and go ahead. Remember he says he's going to give us, actually, start at verse 13. Remember we talked about the Lord said he will send him a strong delusion. And he also said that they're going to give us signs and wonders that if it was so, deceive the very elect. Let's look at some of these signs and wonders that this guy is going to do. Verse 13.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire to come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
That's some crazy stuff, isn't it? Can you imagine you see somebody wave their hand and fire come down from heaven in the sight of men and burn people up? And the crazy thing about it, a saint in the Bible did that. Anybody know what saint in the Bible did this, made fire come down from heaven to burn people up? Yes, Elijah the prophet did it. Elijah the prophet did it. He did it to Ahab's and Jezebel's men who came to get him. So they can easily say, well, Elijah the prophet did it. He's doing it. He must be a saint from God. Not so. What else will happen? Verse 14.
And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live.
Uh-huh.
And he had power to give the life unto an image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
You guys remember in Chicago when they had that water stain under that viaduct? Oh, yeah. And it looked like, they said it like Mother Mary. Remember how they shut that viaduct down? And they put all the candles and the flowers. You remember that, bro?
Yeah.
What was that, in the 90s? Early 2000s?
Yeah.
So think about it. If they did that for a water stain that's been there forever, I think they actually made a image of Mary talk and speak. So when God talks about a strong delusion, God isn't playing, is he, Isaiah?
No.
And we know that he get his power from Satan. But what's going to happen? Verse 16.
And he calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the mark in their right hand or in their foreheads.
And what happened if they don't?
And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. All
right, so you can't buy or sell if you don't have this mark. Remember, this is going on during tribulation. This is going on during that 42 months, 1,260 days, times and a half a time, or dividing the time. That's what's taking place during tribulation. You will have to get some kind of mark. People say it's a computer chip. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But they say you cannot buy or sell, which I question it might not be a computer chip because that might be kind of obvious. But then again, it's a lot of stuff I thought was obvious that's not obvious anymore. And they're actually issuing that chip onto people now. We so ingrained in technology. It's a company in Wisconsin that put a chip in his employees so they don't have to clock in and out. So they don't need a fob. Literally, this was done like 2015, I believe. you know. But it says you can't be by yourself. But what I always wonder is, what's the religious connection in this chip? That's why I say it might be a chip, then again it might not. I'm not taking the chip, just in case, but it has to be some kind of religious connection for you to say, I'm aligning with this religious individual and take this chip or take this mark. So it kind of made me wonder, don't just think it's going to be a computer chip. Because I remember when people was like, hey, New World Order, look out for that. And then we had the Roman Catholic Church doing all types of stuff. So sometimes Satan might send you a delusion or to follow what the white rabbit, follow that one while this is really going on this side. So you got to kind of look at every angle and everything to keep your eyes and ears open. But he said, if you do not buy or sell, if you don't have this mark. So that means that if you don't take this mark, you can't access your bank account. You can't even get paid. You can't get a tax refund. You probably can't even buy a gallon of milk. You can't get gas for your car. That takes some faith, it does it not? And it's important for us to know this stuff is coming already. Verse 18.
Here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
All right, so we know that's for Latin numerals, like vicarious filii. All Latin Romans have, and Roman numerals have some what's it called?
Numeric value.
There we go, numeric value. That's exactly what I was looking for. Like an X means what, 10, right?
Yes.
And a V is 5, and so on. But vicarious filii, if you add that up with the numeric value, Roman numerals add up to 666. Vicarious filii is Vicar of Christ, and that's actually another title for the king that this Bible is talking about. So we understand what that means. Let's go to Daniel chapter 11. We're going to read verse 40. We're going to read this one verse. And this is when tribulation is about to get really bad. Because a lot of nations aren't going to sit back and let this guy do all this stuff. They're going to fight back. So Daniel chapter 11 and verse 40. When you get there, go ahead.
And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him.
Mm-hmm.
And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over.
So all this is taking place in Europe. We know it's taking place in Europe because that's where the Euphrates is. Euphrates divide the north from the south, divide Russia from Italy and all that type stuff in that little area. So you're going to have the king, this is talking about Gog and Magog, which is talking about Russia and them. They're going to have a problem with the stuff this Pope is doing. And they're going to fight against it. This is going to be World War III. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 6. Zechariah chapter 6, we're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to go ahead and speed this along, probably do a little skipping around. Zechariah chapter 6, we're going to start at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
And I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked and beheld, there came 4 chariots, and from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass.
All right, so you have these 4 chariots coming between 2 mountains. These mountains are governments. So you have 4 chariots in between 2 mountains. You have the north and the south. We just read about the king of the north and the king of the south going to war, right? Those are your 2 mountains, north and south. In the middle, there are 4 chariots. And what is these chariots doing? Go ahead.
In the first chariot was red horses, and in the second chariot were black horses.
Mm-hmm.
And in the third chariot, white horses, and in the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay horses.
And what are these? Go ahead.
Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord?
And what did he say?
And the angel answered and said unto me, these are 4 spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. The black horses which are therein go forth into the north country. The white go forth after them, and the grizzled go forth towards the south country.
All right, and their job is to keep those 2 countries at bay, so they don't destroy the earth until the set time, or don't cause turmoil until the set time. So you have 4 angels. You have some angels quiet in the north country, which is one mountain of brass. Then you have another angels quiet the south country with another mountain of brass. So you have Europe. Europe's divided by the Euphrates River, and you have one on one side, one on the other, and they're basically saying, hey, we're going to keep all you guys calm until a set time. All right? Let's now keep going reading verse 8.
I want to skip down to 8.
Yeah, you can skip down to 8.
Then cried he up upon me, and spake unto me, saying, Behold, these that go towards the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country.
So basically, they're keeping everybody at bay. Now let's go to Revelation real quick. Revelation chapter 9. We're going to read about these 4 angels. And once these 4 angels are let loose, that's when World War III is going to happen. And World War III is taking place during the 1,260 days, during tribulation. At this time, the woman of the church, the bulk of the church is where? In a place that's safe. But there are some remnant who are left over here to do a job for the Lord. So Revelation chapter 9, we're going to start at verse 14. When you get there, go ahead.
Saying to the 6th angel which had the trumpets, Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loosened, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. That's what
they were keeping them quiet for. Once the Lord said those 4 angels, what we just read about in Zechariah, were loosed in the great Euphrates, everything is on now. World War III can take place now because they're not keeping them quiet anymore. Now a great war is going to take place, and it's going to kill a third part of the earth. This is some serious stuff. Verse 16.
And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them.
Well, how many is 200,000? What's that, 2 million?
Yes, at least 1 million. 2
million man army. 200,000 is 2 million. So once these angels left, man is going to be is going to go at it with each other. With a 200 million man army is going to attack the south. Because remember, it was quiet in the north. The great Euphrates isn't there. Well, the Euphrates is there, but the angels aren't there anymore. Go ahead, verse 17.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat upon them, having breastplates of fire and of jackton and brimstone, and heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouth issue fire and smoke and brimstone.
So this is just war equipment. Just to sum it all up, this is definitely World War III. This is happening during tribulation. Remember, the bulk of the church is in a place that's safe. But during tribulation, World War III is taking place. The north and the south, or over in Europe, all that is happening right now. Now, let's see what else is going on during tribulation. Let's go to Revelation chapter 11. We'll start at verse 1. You have to read the rest of that. Revelation chapter 11 and verse 1. I just want to touch on that at this time, it's World War III going on during that time. Now, what else is going on during tribulation? We just read about, we got the bulk of the church in a place that's safe. We have the abomination desolation ruling everybody. Now we see that people are fighting against him. And now we're going to see there's something else going on during this time. Revelation chapter 11 and verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
And there was given me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they trend underfoot 42 months.
All right, so basically Jerusalem is going to be occupied by the abomination desolation for how long? 42 months. We heard that number before, right? Same as 1,260. Same as times and a half of time. 3.5 years. So during that 42 months, what else is going to happen? Let's see what the Lord is doing to reach out to people. Verse 3.
And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth.
40 and 2 months or 3.5 years. That's the exact same time that the people are in a place that's safe. This is also happening during tribulation. So you have a group in a place that's safe in the wilderness. You have the abomination desolation who's ruling Jerusalem for 3.5 years or 42 months or 1,260 days. You have World War III going on right now as well. Now you have two witnesses of God who's going to preach for 1,260 days during tribulation. That's how we know that the rapture doesn't make any sense, because these two should be gone as well, but they're not. They're here. And what else are they going to be doing? Verse 3.
In verse 4.
You read verse 3? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, verse 4. Go ahead. Yeah.
These are the two olive trees, and the two candlesticks standeth before the God of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devour their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed.
So you're going to have two witnesses of God who's going to do miracles like the abomination desolation will. And it was a time when that happened before in history. When Moses went and met Pharaoh, some of the miracles that Moses did, also the Pharaoh's musician was able to do it. When Moses turned his staff into a snake, Pharaoh's musicians did the same thing. But only difference is Moses' snake ate their snake. When he turned the water into blood, Moses' magician was able to do the same thing. But then it got to a point where Moses' magicians wasn't able to keep up. That God showed that his power was strong and his power was real. So the same thing's going to happen even during tribulation. You're going to have two witnesses who are going to be able to do the same powers that the false prophet is going to do, but their power is going to be much more powerful. Go ahead.
These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies, 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their bodies to be put in graves.
All right. So remember, how long was their testimony, Brother Isaiah? The two witnesses, how long should they supposed to preach? For how long?
1,260 days.
All right. Is that the length time of tribulation? Right there. That's the length time of tribulation? Yeah. So here's the thing. When you see the abomination, the two witnesses, when they get killed, tribulation is at an end, isn't it? Because their prophecy should be 1,260 days. And then after 3.5 days, because their body's going to be dead, lying in the streets of Jerusalem for how long? 3.5 days. That's how cruel the world is going to be. That they're going to have two witnesses for God. They're going to kill them, leave them where they died at for 3.5 days. And then what are they going to do when they die? Go ahead. This is how bogus it's going to be. Go ahead. Verse 10. You read that already?
No, verse 10. I'm getting.
Okay.
And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because of these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth.
It's going to be Christmas for them. They're going to kill two prophets of God and then have Christmas. Maybe it's going to be during the time of Christmas. I don't know. But either way, they're going to make merry and send gifts to one another. Isn't that what they're doing right now? Very thing they're doing right now. But the two prophets of God just got killed, and they're celebrating. What, they going to start putting dead bodies in their houses and decorate them too?
But they do that already with Israel when they kill them.
That's true.
Don't let their bodies be buried.
No, they leave them hanging on that strange fruit type of deal.
Or in the streets for hours.
So this is what the world is. This is how confused the world's going to be. So when they said that he going to sneak up on something like a thief in the night, seeing this, I believe it. Go ahead, verse 11.
And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. And they stood up on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them.
All right, now it's done. When we see those two prophets, actually, before that even happened, we're going to hear a trumpet being blown. Because once that trumpet is being blown, that's when the dead shall rise. So when you hear that trumpet, or when you hear on the news that these two prophets died, if you're hiding in tribulation, just hide for 3 more days. 3 more days. And once you survive that, then that's when it's really about to get real. Let's see what's about to happen. Jump down. Go ahead and keep reading.
And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. And at the same hour was a great earthquake, and 1/10 part of the city fell. In the earthquake were slain men 7,000, and the remnant were frightened, and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe was past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly.
And let's see what happened, verse 15.
And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever.
Now remember, Daniel told us what would happen. He said that he will war against this beast, and once he war against this beast, he put this beast out, that the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given unto the saints. This is when it's a time to rejoice. This is when tribulation is over. But now we're about to see the Lord fight. So at that trumpet is the first resurrection. So we see the 2 witnesses get raised up, said, Come up hither. Also, all that in the grave will hear his voice, and they will be raised. Well, not all in the grave. In the first resurrection, will hear his voice, and they're going to get raised up as well. Jump down to verse 18, and he's going to see. We're also going to see what happened next. Go ahead.
And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. And the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give a reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth.
So that's what's coming next. This is after tribulation. Now we're after tribulation. This is the aftermath of tribulation. God is about to fight now. He's about to really be the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So we see the first resurrection take place. Now the nations were angry, and now they're going to make war with Jesus. Let's go to Revelation 19 and start at verse 11. So now tribulation is completely over. The first resurrection has taken place. Jesus is on his way down to fight against man. So Revelation 19 and verse 11, when you get there, go ahead.
And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doeth judge and maketh war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but himself. He was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God.
All right, so we know this is the second coming of Christ, and he's covered in blood from all the killing that he's going to do. Isaiah 63 let us know that this is after he come from dealing with Edom. But then after that, he's going to deal with the rest of the world. Verse 14.
And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he should rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress in the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
All right, now let's see what happened after that. Jump down to verse 19.
And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat upon the horse and against his army.
So that's what's going on now. Now you have man trying to fight Jesus. And Jesus said he's already covered in blood from all destruction. He's going to be covered with more blood. If you read verse 17 and 18, he's calling all the animals, get ready. Go ahead and put your bib on, birds, beasts of the field, because you about to eat up some stuff. And who are they going to eat? They're going to eat all the dead bodies from the humans and horses and all that stuff, because the Lord is about to do a lot of killing. The Bible let us know that it's going to be so much blood that it's going to be up to the horse's bridle. Anybody ever stood next to a horse and see how tall a horse is? You ever see how the horse's mouth is usually about at your eye level? That's how much blood is going to be over in the valley of Jehoshaphat. It's going to be that much blood because they're going to fight God. Now, this is after tribulation. Go ahead and jump down to verse, you can read verse 20.
And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and them that worshiped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with the brimstone.
All right, so that abomination desolation will be the first ones go into the lake of fire, and the beast is the head of the Roman Empire at that time. Verse 21.
And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceedeth out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh.
All right, we're gonna skip Zechariah 14. That's just saying the same thing over again, but it gives real detail how he actually killed people. He just speak the word and their flesh will melt off their body. It says their eyes are consuming their eye sockets. I mean, this God get real descriptive of how he do stuff. A literal sword don't come out his mouth. He just says, burn, and you burn. Your skin and melt off you right then and there. Let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Because, okay, all this is going on all at once. You know, you got a lot of stuff going on right now. There's nobody in a place of safety anymore because they made the first resurrection, most likely. World War III is now over it, but God is fighting man. So now, while God is taking care of all his business, he's going to send an angel to do something else. And let's see what this angel is going to do. Matthew 24 and start at verse 29.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Yep, then what's going to happen?
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
All right, so now this is also going on after tribulation. You have Jesus and his army and the people who made the first resurrection fighting against the beast and his army. But then you have another angel who's about to proceed to start to gather his church from all over the world. Go ahead.
Now learn a parable of the fig tree.
I'm sorry, we have to read that part. He said, then shall the angels to gather his elect from the four winds of heaven. All right, so we see that's going on, right? Let's go to Isaiah 27. You read verse 31, right? Yeah. Isaiah 27. And we're going to start at verse 12. So while the Lord is fighting against those armies and everything like that, you have an angel who's gathered together his elect from the four winds of heaven. That's going on also after tribulation. And once again, we're not talking about those who are in a place of safety. They're not there anymore. Most likely they made the first resurrection. That area is now completely empty. It's a war going on in the valley of Jehoshaphat, or in the time called Armageddon, a place called Armageddon. That's going on. You have the angel starting to gather his elect from the four winds of heaven. That's going on. Isaiah chapter 27 and verse 12. When you get there, go ahead.
You said 27?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What I said 20-something before. Isaiah 27 and verse 12. I'm sorry. When you get there, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river upon the stream of Egypt, and ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel.
All right, so this is going on after tribulation, verse 13.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship the Lord in the holy mountain at Jerusalem.
All right, so once again, he's gathering his elect from the four winds of heaven. He's talking about gathering Israel one by one after that seventh trumpet. So all that stuff is going on right now. And let's see, once the Lord get done with Jerusalem, what he's going to do after that. Isaiah chapter 16, we'll start at verse 1. Isaiah 16, we'll start at verse 1. Now remember, if we would have read Zechariah, we would have read that the Lord in that day shall stand upon Mount Olives, and it's going to be a great earthquake. We read about that earthquake actually in Revelation 11 when the two witnesses died. It was the same earthquake. Now, once he's done destroying Jerusalem and the Edomites and also the rest of the world, what he's going to do after that? Isaiah 16 and verse 1. Go ahead.
Send ye the lamb to the ruler of the land from Selah, to the wilderness, unto the mount of the daughter of Zion.
So he's going to leave Selah. Selah is Jerusalem. And he's going to go to the wilderness. Why is he going to the wilderness? Because remember, he's gathering his elect from the four winds of heaven. He's gathering Israel one by one. Where is he taking them to? He's taking them to the wilderness first. Why is he taking them to the wilderness first? Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20, we're going to start at verse 34. You got to see how the Lord operates. The Lord says, I am the Lord, I change not, right? Remember before he brought the children of Israel into the promised land, he had to take them to the wilderness to do what? Train them up, purge out the rebels, and they were there for 40 years. Then he brought them into the promised land. The same thing he's going to do, except for a lot shorter period of time. He's going to do to the children of Israel again once he's gathered them. Ezekiel 20, verse 34. When you get there, go ahead.
And I will bring you out from the people and will gather you out of the countries wherein you were scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face.
So this is Jesus talking about he's going to plead with them face to face. Now, remember when we were talking about Isaiah, how Jesus had to finish his 3.5-year ministry?
Yes.
This is when he's going to finish his 3.5-year ministry. He walked 3.5 years as a man, and he died in the midst of that week. But he still has to finish that last 3.5-year ministry. This is when Jesus is going to finish his last 3.5-year ministry, when he talked to his people face to face in the wilderness. And then what he's going to do, verse 36.
Like I pled with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Lord.
So it's God. The same thing. And then verse 37.
And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant.
And then what's it going to do?
And I will purge out from you among you the rebels and them that transgress against me, and I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord.
So it's going to be a lot of hard-headed jakes going in there, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes, and they're going to get into that wilderness, and they're going to be tripping about all the dumb stuff they're tripping about now, and the Lord said, I ain't dealing with this now. Get out of here. And you're going to purge out the rebels. That's why you can't be walking around acting like you know everything, because that might carry over if you survive tribulation into the wilderness. It'd be a shame that you survive tribulation to turn around and go to the wilderness and then die that way.
But this will complete the 70 weeks of Daniel.
That will complete the 70 weeks of Daniel. The whole Bible tie in together. So many lessons tie in together. So this has also happened at the end of tribulation. And then when everything's said and done, we can go to Revelation 21. We don't need to read Romans 20, because that's talking about the 1,000 years of peace. That's after he brings the children of Israel out in the wilderness. It'll be 1,000 years of peace. He's gonna put Satan into the change of darkness, and people are gonna live a lot longer and different things like that. But then let's see when everything is done. Actually, we'll go to Revelation 20. It's one part I really want to read. We'll go to Revelation 20. We'll just jump to the end. Revelation 20. And we'll start at verse 12. This is after the 1,000 years is over with, because the 1,000 years is going to be after he bring the children of Israel into the wilderness. He's going to set Satan up for 1,000 years. Once that's over, he's going to let Satan out. He's going to deceive the nations all over again, and the Lord's going to burn them up. And then we're going to have Judgment Day. Revelation 20 and verse 12. When you get there, go ahead.
And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of these books, which were written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up their dead, which were in it. Death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
So that's Judgment Day. Everything is done at this point. So you had tribulation when he gathered Israel as a nation. He purged out the rebels. After tribulation, after he gathered Israel, purged out the rebels. Then he brought them to Jerusalem, and they reigned for 1,000 years. If you would have read Revelation 20, verses 1 through 15, it talks about how they will reign for 1,000 years. And then at the end of the 1,000 years is Judgment Day. Once Judgment Day is over, this is when we start our path on eternity. Revelation 21 and start at verse 1.
And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he that dwelt with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God.
That's what Daniel was saying, that the whole kingdom under heaven was given unto the saints. It's talking about that right here. Go ahead.
And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write these words are true and faithful.
And that's tribulation. I hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen.
I know we haven't had a lesson where we got